During a recent fundraising event, former President Donald Trump basically flat out told oil and gas executives that he would cut their taxes further if they managed to fundraise $1 billion for his campaign.
Okay, so we covered that story a little over a year ago. And in the end, the oil industry did not end up raising $1 billion for President Donald Trump. But apparently he didn't mind too much because he just gave them billions and billions of dollars anyway. Cenk, what was your reaction when you saw all of the goodies that just went to the fossil fuel companies? What do you think?
I'm so mad about it. So we get super mad about the donors buying off our Congress when it comes to Israel and Gaza because it's creating a genocide, right? So that is super understandable. But these oil guys have been getting 10 times what Israel's getting for over 100 years. The amount now is 10 times more than Israel. And then Yaz gonna tell you, Trump added another giant number on top, okay? And so why? Why do we have to take money out of our pocket? Again, every time you pay your taxes, you have to set aside a certain amount for the richest companies in the world. Oh, ExxonMobil didn't get enough. Here, take $10 from me, take $128 from me. Oh, Chevron, of course, here, let me write you a check. Oh, I gotta work 2 extra hours to pay for ExxonMobil's subsidies. The corruption is so obvious. They're just robbing us blind every single day. So here are the enraging details of this. We'll come back and talk about how it's been going on forever.
Okay, so the oil industry just got a staggering amount of money from Trump's budget bill. So here are the details. The bill includes about $18 billion in new and expanded tax incentives for the oil and gas industry. It also includes billions of dollars in tax breaks that aren't specific to oil and gas, but were top oil industry priorities as the law was being negotiated. It reduces the amount of money that energy companies must pay the federal government for the oil and gas they extract on public lands and waters, a change valued at about $6 billion. And the bill also delays penalties for oil companies that fail to reduce emissions of methane, representing about $1.5 billion in benefits for the industry. So according to the New York Times, the American Petroleum Institute is the industry's main lobbying group. The organization's vice president of corporate policy stated this. He said, the final bill was positive for us across all of our top priorities. How about that? Good for you, we're all very happy. Keep in mind that all of those benefits were additional goodies. The oil and gas industry already enjoys at least $35 billion in annual tax breaks. So you're probably wondering, if the oil industry didn't fundraise $1 billion for Trump, how much money did they actually end up raising for him? Well, a New York Times analysis found that oil industry and related interests made $75 million in direct donations to Trump and his campaign committees. 75 million is way short of $1 billion, but there is way more corruption where that came from. We just learned that billionaire Jeff Yass gave $16 million to Trump's super PAC in the first half of this year alone. Yass's firm is a major investor in ByteDance, which, as you all know, is TikTok's parent company. And as we've covered many times on this show, Trump was previously in favor of a TikTok ban until around the time he got cozy with Jeff Yass. So since taking office, Trump has repeatedly pushed back the deadline on a legally mandated ban on TikTok. So the law only allows for one 90-day extension, though Trump has now paused its enforcement 3 times. And according to Reuters, Yass has discussed the idea of his firm acquiring TikTok with the Trump administration. Jackson, it's what Cenk was saying, the corruption is everywhere. You can't escape it. And it feels hopeless. And I hate saying that because I don't like to leave the audience just feeling like, ugh, what do we do? But man, we gotta get this money out of politics. And this is something that's gonna be wildly unpopular. especially with people on the left, like this is like, we already know how predatory the oil and gas industry is. I live here in Texas. I see it firsthand. I see what it's doing, not just here in this country, not just here in Texas, but around the world. But it's such a big moneymaker that it's hard to imagine anybody in Congress or in the White House doing anything to fight off big oil and gas. But what was interesting was that at first he said, raise me $1 billion. They only raised him 75 million. So the things that they'll do just for $75 million,
Way off from $1 billion. Yeah. But now, can you imagine what it would be like to just get endless loans that you don't have to pay back and you already make like all the money in the world? Like these companies make so much money, they don't need these subsidies. It's just free money. Just like Cenk pointed out, they just robbing us blind. So there's a couple things in this in terms of what you asked me about, like what people can walk away from this about. So on the one hand, one of the things that I'm really big on and will continue to be big on for the rest of my life is being involved in your community politics, being involved in local politics, because there's much less in the way of getting anything passed. You don't have to get a 60 vote federal Senate to get anything through. Oftentimes, if you just get really involved right in your backyard, you only need a couple hundred votes, maybe a couple thousand votes to get somebody good in office. And so much can happen so quickly. So I encourage everybody always to learn how your city actually functions so that you can get involved with campaigns, get involved with pushing different types of initiatives, get involved with raising funds and voting. So there's that. So we can build from the bottom out. There's a lot of progressive policies that have been passed in cities around the country in this way. And the other thing is, I think that Donald Trump is going to be one of like the faces of America's downfall. Everything wrong that we're getting ready to see, whether we go into a recession, depression, whatever that is, all the chaos we're going through is going to be scapegoated to him. And Donald Trump is perhaps the most corrupt in the world. You know what I'm saying? Like this dude, like what he does now in his first term and he does now, he's always having people at his properties, whether that's political events or whatever it is, fundraisers at his properties so that money, taxpayer dollars, can be funneled into his pockets. All the deals that he did with Saudi Arabia for the Live golf tournament. He was just in Scotland promoting his own golf course, Jared Kushner and Ivanka and all the money that they got, all the that he's constantly selling to his supporters. Literally anything you can think of, this man has had his raggedy, cheap ass name on it. And then actually Josh Hawley, who's no progressive, one of the senators of Missouri, where I'm from, he's one of the biggest people behind pushing for an anti-insider trading bill. And Donald Trump is behind the scenes lobbying against that because this bill makes it such that presidents and vice presidents also get held to account. And we can't have that. You know what I'm saying? Also, him getting on Chuck Grassley's head because he wanted him to support something to where there's like less oversight and federal judges getting approved. Like, so is he just bungles everything because he's completely ill prepared to deal with anything whatsoever? Perhaps that can encourage people to just put better politicians in office. If there's any good thing that's going to come from Donald Trump, I think it's going to be galvanizing the people to actually stand up, make some type of a revolution, and hopefully get some of this money out of politics. But maybe it just got to get really bad before it gets better.
Yeah, so they spent 75 million on Trump, but overall in the last election cycle on Republicans, Democrats, lobbying, advertising, donations, the oil and gas industry spent $450 million. So that's a lot of money. You're not gonna spend $500 million unless you think you're gonna get a good return on investment. And credit to the oil companies, they nailed it. That $500 million got them 18 billion extra on top of protecting the 35 billion they get every single year. So if you're, I'm just using this as an example because it's one that we're all upset about, right? All decent people are. If you're upset about the $3.8 billion Israel gets every year, These guys get nearly 10 times as much, and they've been getting it every year, robbery after robbery after robbery. They've been sitting at the top of the charts for the most profitable companies in the world for almost my entire lifetime. Nevertheless, every year they take money out of our paychecks and send it to them. Why? Because they all got bribed $450 million. That's how it works. And the job of mainstream media is to come up, they're the getaway car, right? In this crime. So they're like, no. Don't look at the politicians taking money from Israel, from the oil company, from the drug companies, from every kind of company there is, semiconductor companies, and funneling billions and billions and billions of dollars of your money to them. That's the great American robbery. And the job of mainstream media is to pretend it doesn't exist. So how often have you seen on cable news anywhere, CNN, or MSNBC or Fox News, these outrageous politicians giving subsidies to corporations, whether it's Intel when Biden did it with the CHIPS Act, or it's oil companies when both Democrats and Republicans do, but Republicans are like, wait, Democrats, you're just giving them 35 billion, hold my beer. I give them an 18 billion on top. It's just open bribery everywhere. And every idiot that works in mainstream media goes, I don't see it. I don't see it. New York Times is like, what do you mean? Bribery? Oh no, I'll report the story. I'll report the story. And thank you, New York Times, good story on this one, right? We always give credit where credit is due. But the very next day, they'll have amnesia. The minute they cover a story about the oil industry or a vote on it, or these politicians, if you say the politicians are crooks, this is a bribe, and there's no justifiable reason for those subsidies other than the bribes, the same New York Times will turn around and go, how dare you? That's a conspiracy theory. No, these politicians are so honorable. They would never care about it. Come on, guys. They're a bunch of crooks. So the oil companies are robbing all of us, all of us. They've been robbing us forever and ever and ever. And until we get money out of politics, all of these corporations are gonna rob all of us to the end of time. Money in politics is not the most important issue. It's the only issue. Because if you don't solve that, if you don't stop the robbery, there's gonna be no money left in the bank. We're not gonna be able to do anything. And all the cops have been bribed already, and they work for the criminals. So until you stop the bribing of the cops, we can't stop any crimes. Look, Wolfpack is trying so hard to make a difference here. They're very happy to take left wing, right wing, middle wing. Go help at fightcorruption.us. We'll put the link below too, fightcorruption.us. Get in the fight, make a difference. The minute that you're hopeless and you sit on your couch, CEO of ExxonMobil is gonna go, yes, we were such criminals. We were such crooks, we robbed them so much, they gave up hope. And now we're gonna get to rob them forever. So don't let them do that, fightcorruption.us.
Yeah, and I want to get to the next story, but I also want to say that they did all this, but they also got rid of subsidies for green energy. Like here in Texas, I know that I have solar panels on my house, and we got a tax credit for adding them to our house. That is going away, I think, right now or next month, very, very soon, by the end of this year at least. And I live in Texas, so the oil and gas industry is something that you are faced with literally every day. As soon as you step out of your house, it's there. You see it with your eyes. I live in Houston. There's a lot of refineries here. My family's from Guyana, South America, so I'm always thinking about oil now because of that. It's a whole thing. And here in Texas, like our air is polluted, our water is polluted. These oil and gas companies have such protections. They're allowed to get away with all kinds of things. On one side of Houston, where all of the refineries are, the life expectancy is, I believe, almost 2 decades less than the life expectancy on the west side of town, which, by the way, is where Ted Cruz lives. Maybe not relevant, maybe it is relevant, but at the same time, we're also not allowed to have hemp here in Houston or here in Texas because that would hinder the oil and gas industry, where we don't pay very much for gas for our cars, but you have to drive everywhere because this whole state has been made to be so car dependent that you can't walk anywhere even if you wanted to. So I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent, but the oil and gas industry is incredibly predatory. I don't think I'm saying anything remarkable in saying that, but I do think about it a lot. But
yeah,
on that note,
hold on, yes, because you said, I just want to point out two things. To your point about their hypocrisy, Rex Tillerson was the CEO of ExxonMobil. And then a company was going to frack near his home in Texas, and he sued them. He's like, you can't do that fracking, that's dangerous. You do it all across the country. But the minute that it's close to you, you're like, oh, no. I don't want that anywhere near me. I'm rich. No, that danger that we're doing to the world, that's for you guys to pay for, and you guys to suffer the consequences, not me. That's the kind of hypocrisy. By the way, Rex Tillerson, you might remember him. You're like, wait, where do I remember that name? He was randomly selected as Trump's Secretary of State in his first term. What does the CEO of an oil company have anything to do with Secretary of State? It's because the oil
literally the most powerful position in government, basically.
Next to the president, that's right. That's because that's how much the oil companies bribe politicians that they get the second most powerful position in our government. It's insanity. And last thing is to your point earlier about Jeff Yaz. So this brother gave $16 million to keep TikTok going. I agree with his policy. Like I don't think TikTok should be shut down. But that's because between him and his company, he has about $100 billion on the line. So that's why, guys, if you're wondering why did they give so much, 16 million is nothing when there's 100 billion on the line. So that's why they're buying all of our politicians, because it makes economic sense for them. So, and even if you agree with a policy position, you should not agree that our politicians should be bought by people like Jeff Yaz and Rex Tillerson. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.